So let's talk about how choosy you should be when it comes to whatever experience you have as a basketball player. Let's start with being a beginner. Now, the great thing about being a beginner is that you're a blank slate, right? Since you don't have any experience, you don't know what you like and what you don't like and what you prefer and don't prefer and what does or does not work for you. The reason that's great is because now you get to experiment. And for the first time ever, you get to experience what it's like to have a basketball that you don't like and that you do like, and like what works for you and what doesn't. Now, that may not sound like much to you as a beginner, but the reality is, like, once you get years into this game, you'll think back on this time and be like, man, that was kind of like a magical time, because I was very first discovering like the kind of root kind of player I was going to be by discovering like, okay, what kind of basketball is it that works best for me? So when it comes to choosing a basketball as a beginner, the key is to experiment. My advice is, when you buy a basketball, the basketball should be as basic and bare bones as possible, which also means it's probably going to be fairly inexpensive, which is a good thing because that basketball is going to break down and wear out relatively quickly. And that's fine. And that's a good thing, because that means once you take that ball through its entire life cycle, when you go to replace it, you can then replace it with a ball that's slightly different from the last ball. And what I advise is, nowadays, you guys have so many options when it comes to basketball, even the very basic sort of bare bones kind of basketballs. When I was coming up in the 90s, you either had expensive leather basketballs that were meant for indoor play, and this is an outdoor channel, or you had super basic rubber basketballs that didn't really have any good use or utility to them. But now you have a long spectrum of basketballs that go from super rubbery basketballs to super like composite leather basketballs that feel very leathery. You have that whole entire spectrum. And within that spectrum are the very basic basketballs that travel up and down that spectrum. And you have the ability to experience all of those basic basketballs. And you should. The reason I say that is because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you come out to the park, you're about to compete, and now you have to use a basketball that's a different kind, style, feel, make, kind of, maybe a fabric or, whatever, a construction that you're not used to. And, when you're a few years in, that doesn't really make that much of a difference. But when you're a beginner and you're playing with a basketball type that you're not used to, that can make a big difference. So the more you experiment with basketballs and see what it's like to take a brand new basketball of a certain type all the way through its life cycle, from brand new to completely worn out, and then replace it with a basketball that's slightly different and work your way up and down that spectrum, then now you have the experience of like, okay, there's no kind of basketball that I could ever play with, that I could ever be presented with, that is going to be uncomfortable to me. Because as I'm rapidly replacing basketballs, I'm changing slightly the kind of basketball that I used last time. And you work your way through that spectrum so that by the end of it, there's no kind of basketball that you could ever encounter that is going to make you feel uncomfortable. That's the best kind of advice I could give you as a beginner, as what kind of basketball should you have.